Hello, everybody, and welcome in to a pre-New Year's edition of the Lions Grid. Joined here, as always, by my co-host, Mr. Jeffrey Raymond. Jeffrey, how are you doing? How did the holidays treat you?
Doing good, doing good. Spent some time with family. Had a good Christmas. Watched some interesting football in that time. Those games weren't so great on Christmas and the day after, but doing good. Ready to ring in the new year here.
Yeah, I will say at least Netflix seemed to get the whole server thing figured out because the games were a lot smoother than the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight. Things seemed to go a little bit smoother there on the technical side of things.
Yeah, they were slower than Mike Tyson looked out there.
Um, but it was interesting to see the same four teams play the Saturday before and then on Christmas Day see those four teams again. Of course, pairing up against different opponents, play and certainly that Beyonce halftime show went pretty hard in the paint there in
Yeah,
that Houston Texans game.
that was a full length feature. It was.
It was pretty in depth, and unfortunately for people who had C.J. Stroud in their fantasy football championship,
Yeah.
he put up that donut there in that pretty tough defeat there. But we're in an interesting position this week, Jeffrey. Usually, when we're coming to the people in the pregame episode here, usually it isn't the last game of the week, but that is where we find ourselves here in week 17. Everyone else has played. The table set for the Lions to take on the 49ers. And that's where we are. We're the last game with an outcome that needs to be decided, Jeffrey. And of course, it kind of I feel like it almost takes away from this game a little bit, Jeffrey.
It
This
does.
game.
It does with Minnesota winning and us really the showdown for the marbles, as it were, is next week. Not to say it's not important that these guys aren't going to go out there and given what Dan Campbell said in the media this week about going forward and putting it up themselves all in every game kind of thing. I don't think they're going to let up here at all. But as far as seeding wise and the fact that the 49ers are eliminated from playoffs, it makes this like almost like an afterthought. Thought here.
Yeah, this game I feel like had a lot of hype in it in the preseason. Like it was a game where you're like, hey man, week 17, you got the Lions going to San Francisco. It could be a big game for the playoff seeding.
Not so
And
much.
yeah, just not so much here for us. And it's kind of funny because both of these two teams have definitely been hit pretty hard by the injury bug. And while the Lions have been able to find a way to just keep it rolling and keep getting these wins here, it's been a lot harder for the 49ers. They've struggled. They definitely missed Christian McCaffrey early in the season. They were still putting up pretty good numbers on the ground, but just ultimately that offense looked out of whack. When he did finally come back, things were still just with all the other injuries, never really got going. And it feels like this is kind of a waste of a season for the 49ers. But on the flip side, Jeff, for the Lions, as you pointed out, I know Dan Campbell is certainly ready to have this team or, wants to have the team ready to come in here and avoid any sort of letdown. And I'm pretty sure as far as this
revenge game.
Yeah, the revenge towar's been going. It's
Yeah.
been circled since that NFC Championship game. And the fact that they are traveling back out to San Francisco for it, the place where their season ended last year, definitely expect the Lions to come out here and have an edge to them as they, again, the outcome of this game doesn't really have too much of an impact on any potential playoff scenario. I know
Only if we lose and then tie.
That is the only way that so it's a long shot. It's the chance isn't zero, but if the Lions were to lose tonight and then tie Minnesota next week, Minnesota would get the tiebreaker there. So not very probable, but certainly if you're the Lions, you'd rather have the tiebreaker in your favor. So what better reason than you already have revenge on the table? But the fact that you can have that little extra bit of just owning the tiebreaker against the Vikings, should the unthinkable happen in Week 18, why not come out here and get it, Jeffrey?
Yeah, I think it's good to kind of get the really, because even if we were to get the 1 seed, there's always a kind of like a, do you keep playing and keep momentum? Do you get that rest? Do certain teams not look great coming off of after a week rest kind of thing? Um,
Mhm.
there's a lot of that at play, but I think like we'd mentioned, it's a revenge game. They want to go in here and kind of take care of business, and I think it has the potential to be close. I think the Desert has us as a 3.5 point favorite on the road there, so they are within kind of fudge territory as far as it being
Mhm.
even matchup, and we'll see another week of a depleted defense with kind of our new look that we're going on here. But a lot of our people are kind of coming back. There's people coming back healthy, but I think uh, Brock Purdy has a chance to have a big game through the air in this game. I think, if Caleb Williams can throw 300 something yards against that new look defense, right? I think Brock
Mhm.
Purdy can be able to do something. Yeah, I think it has a chance to be a close game, but I do see us ultimately taking care of business.
Yeah, I do think one thing we'll have to watch out for, in addition to Brock Purdy throwing the football, and it was something that he took advantage of in the playoff game last year, was running as well. We play a lot of man coverage. The result of that is our DBs are focused on the guy they're supposed to be covering. And so QBs that can be mobile and can scramble, it has been an Achilles heel for us. It did hurt us in that NFC Championship game. Um, Brock Purdy, who is not necessarily known for being a super mobile quarterback, was able to make some pretty impactful plays with his feet in that game. So certainly going to be something we're going to watch out for in this one. But Jeffrey, you mentioned injuries, and certainly the Lions are getting healthier, but there are a couple of names that we're definitely keeping an eye on, and a few of them unfortunately won't be going this week for sure. David Montgomery is still out with that knee injury. It's looking like he will most likely be back for a divisional round in the playoffs. So another reason why securing that number one seed in the bye is important, so that when we do see playoff action, we can have Knuckles to go with Sonic there in the backfield. And then Khalif Raymond was activated off the IR, but he is definitely out for this game. And so was Jalen Reeves-Maybin. He was also activated this week. He is questionable, and I have not seen for sure yet if he is playing in this game. And I was looking just a few minutes ago, so something to keep an eye on there. But regardless, it's good to see both Khalif Raymond and Jalen Reeves-Maybin getting back. Coming back from their IR stints, and hopefully going to be back here contributing for the team here shortly, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see if Khalif Raymond, if he does finally when he does kind of get to play, we're probably going to be asking him some big spots here at the end of the year and in the playoffs. It's good to see him back because he was explosive when he does have the ball, even just as a return guy.
Yeah, he definitely adds a whole nother element that you have to be worried about when you're trying to game plan for these lines. So getting his explosiveness back will certainly be a boon for this team. And it seems like he might be ready to go for that Week 18 matchup with the Vikings. We'll have to see how the week of practice goes. But there's certainly potential that he could suit up there and help us clinch our back-to-back NFC North titles for the first time in franchise history, Jeffrey.
Yeah, it'll be good, and I think like Heather Carwayne in the chat, I think Goff and Monroe St. Brown are going to have to step up and have a big game today. It was definitely a lot on the running game, especially in the NFC Championship game. We took advantage of a lot of off tackle running, and that's with San Francisco. Their defense is kind of their better unit between their two offensive defensive right now, and their injuries have been mostly on the offensive side of the ball. So their defense is mostly intact. So I think we'll see very similar things as far as what we saw last year.
Yeah, they do have some injuries on the defensive side. Taking a look at their injury report, they do have their offensive line, as you mentioned, is pretty banged up. But Dre Greenlaw, who had returned after his injury in the Super Bowl, he is out for this game. Defensive lineman Robert Beal Jr. is out with an ankle injury, and then they have their safety Jair Brown, who is questionable. They have their linebacker Tatum Bethune and Charvis Ward, their defensive back, are questionable in this game as well. So similar, like I said, like the Lions, the 49ers are another team dealing with a lot of injuries. They are going to be without Trent Williams, too, at the left tackle there. They have shut him down for the season since they have been knocked out of playoff contention here. So, yeah, Jeffrey, I think it is certainly a game on paper where you have to like the Lions in this game. They are two teams headed in different directions. 49ers heading into their offseason after next week, whereas the Lions certainly have aspirations to maybe make a Super Bowl run here. So,
Yeah.
First things first, you got to handle business here against the team that ended your season just a year
Crazy.
ago.
We could be looking at 14 wins and still not be that division winner, still not have that 1 seed wrapped up.
Well, I mean,
nothing's given easy to this team, man.
Yeah, it is. Whether it's the Vikings or the Lions, whichever team is going to be the first team to have 14, or well, potentially is going to be the team to have 14 wins and not win their division. So it's pretty crazy, for either fan, for either side you find yourself on. And yeah, I mean, I think. For me, it was pretty easy to root for the Packers, knowing my history and where my fandom used to lie. I was definitely hoping that they could help us out and get that victory over the Vikings. But no such luck. No such luck there.
I think of the NFC North, I think they might be the most incomplete team, as it were. They can't. Jordan Love has definitely fallen off. I just don't think that they are good at, I just don't think they're good enough to kind of hang with the Vikings and us, even though they're one of the better teams in the NFL. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think they're definitely not as consistent. Like we see us and the Vikings seem to be, from kickoff to the end of the game, each week we seem to be pretty consistent with what we're bringing to the table. The Packers, it kind of varies between game to game what you're going to see out of them. Some games they look really good. Other games they look kind of like hot garbage. So it's definitely if I had to play one of the NFC North teams and I was not with the Lions, I certainly would prefer the Packers out of the three options there. I think you're right.
Plus, we've proven to beat them already. So
yeah, if you had to beat one of the teams, I think the Packers would probably be the safe bet for most teams in that situation. But Jeffrey, if we take a look at the playoff picture here, and again with the Lions playing here on Monday night, it's the last game of Week 17. So at the moment, the Vikings technically have the number 1 seed. We haven't played yet, so I mean it's comparing apples to oranges. Once we get this game in here, that'll really help get things figured out. But for the most part, we're starting to see that playoff picture become more locked in. Both the AFC and the NFC side only have one available spot left. And it's really going to come down here for the NFC side of things. Is it going to be Tampa Bay or is it going to be Atlanta? And then on the AFC side of things, it's a little bit more spicy. It's either going to be the Broncos or it's going to be the Dolphins or the Bengals, Jeffrey.
Yeah, surprising. The Bengals rising from the ashes there on the back of what could be maybe considered an MVP candidate-like season, depending on how far they get here.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. We will get to that in a moment when you do some roaring or boring, but it was almost extra spicy if the New York Giants hadn't decided to throw away the first pick in the draft and beat the Colts, because then it would have been 3 teams there on the bubble there with the Broncos. But
the Colts epic meltdown, man. The Giants were averaging about 14.5 points per game. They put up 40 on these guys in a must-win game. Come on now.
Drew Lock 5 touchdowns, breaking franchise records on them. Just it's not good.
Yeah.
It's one thing to lose, but when you find yourself having Drew Lock suddenly coming to life and setting franchise records, and it's not like it's a franchise that doesn't have Super Bowls in its recent
Right.
history. So it just it not good for the Colts. Not
Oh.
good at all.
No, and still, I think and we might be kind of getting ahead of ourselves here, but is has Anthony Richardson made enough strides this year to warrant continuation of the experiment? I don't. I think we've seen mostly inconsistent play by him. Right, he only pretty much completes about 12 passes a game, and out of the 30 he throws, and sometimes they're to the other team. So,
Yeah.
um,
It'll definitely be great content for this offseason, especially as we look
yeah.
at, what are the Vikings going to do with Sam Darnold? Because, are they going to sign him to a franchise tag? They obviously have JJ McCarthy waiting in the wings, coming off of that injury. So, Kirk Cousins, what is he going to do after leaving the Falcons, which will presumably happen? I believe it'll probably happen before July because then he gets a roster bonus or something like that. So
Mhm.
it looks like they'll probably make the move with letting him go before then. And does he retire? Does he come back? Aaron Rodgers has taken to calling shots at Woody Johnson and his son. And so
I've never been
he's
released
probably
by a teenager before.
so
He's
I
like,
mean,
I've never been released, much less by a teenager. So
so
that relationship is cooked, man.
yeah, so they're could they look to bring in one of those veteran quarterbacks to maybe say, hey, if we're a QB away, is it an Aaron Rodgers? Is it a Kirk Cousins? Potentially a Sam Darnold if you want to get super spicy and try and get him away from the Vikings. I mean,
To
there's
come
gonna
back to the Jets.
no to go to the
Oh,
Colts
to
in
the Colts. Oh, I
particular.
was gonna say,
Yeah, so
dang, okay.
yeah, no, I wouldn't go back to the Jets. If you've been to the Jets and you go back there, that's a problem.
That's that's
you
what
need to
Stockholm
go talk
syndrome.
to somebody because
That's a yeah,
you got some issues.
yeah.
If you've been set free, don't go back.
Oh,
I know T. Higgins had tweeted out, after Sauce Gardner had tweeted out after T. Higgins made that catch to help them get the win in overtime this weekend. Had tweeted out, "Pay the man," and somebody said, "Hey, you should recruit him to come play for the Jets." And he's like, "Nah, nope,
no,
nah,
no, oh no, I would not do that to that guy.
not happening." So
Yeah,
it's not good in
yeah,
New
it's
York.
it's not good, and I think Elijah Mitchell had also made some pretty hilarious comments out here in the media this week. One of them just talking about how vibes are just good, and then we get to the game, and then we get our asses kicked. It's and then there's been rumors about him being like, if Aaron Rodgers comes back, I want to be traded. So it's um, just more rough waters for those Jets.
Yeah, they are teams certainly without a clear that they don't have a very good result this season and not a real clear future in mind too, which thankfully the Lions while we are certainly familiar with that pain, not the position we find ourselves in any longer, Jeffrey. And it's refreshing to be able to
It
look
is
at the
refreshing.
clown shows and be like, that's no longer us. We don't have
Yes.
to wear the paper bag over our head any longer.
Yeah, I mean the Bears are the Bears. There's a lot of loud chants of "sell the team" on those big pride time games. It's people with their heads in those bags themselves, with like "make it end" written on there. It's like we got the Browns for sure, clown organization, the Jets, the Titans possibly.
I mean, even though the Colts have a much better record, I kind of put them there too because Jim Irsay is another one of those owners that likes to have his sticky fingers all over things, and
Yeah,
it doesn't seem to work out, man.
yeah, yeah. It's good to be on
It,
the other side of that.
yeah, it was all good when he had Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison and crew coming through the doors, but after that team timed out, it has not quite been the same. I mean, things were good with Andrew Luck there for a little while, but it's
They broke him, man.
and now he is the GM of Stanford football. So he's
Crazy.
going back to his roots.
Yeah.
But Jeffrey, as we transition here now into Roaring or Boring, there are a bunch of teams here and a bunch of coaches that are having exceptional seasons. And it's great because, not only are we not one of the dumpster fires, but there's Mr. Dan Campbell there front and center. And you may recognize some of these coaches here on the screen as potential head coach of the year recipients here, Jeffrey. Of this group here, and of course we have quite a few. I definitely have heard Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings head coach, there coming up quite a bit. But Jeffrey, what are your thoughts here? Is it roaring or boring? Do you think Dan Campbell pulls out this award, or do you think are you going to go with the field here?
For me personally, I think he deserves it for sure. But all of these guys make a pretty good case for it. Um, I think, as far as the most surprising to me, it's definitely Sean McVay and how he got this team to 10 wins in any manner possible, not scoring touchdowns, only scoring field goals. He's made something out of nothing there. So that to me is impressive with versus Dan Campbell, who came in with a super talented team. But I think if he didn't win last year or the year before, I don't know if he's gonna. I don't know, because Kevin O'Connell. I think it's going to really come down to this last game. It's going to decide a lot of things here.
Yeah, I feel like part of the issue is that like if you this was like a multi-year award, like you have if you look at the whole body of work that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have done, I certainly think they are more than deserving of the award, but like they came into the season and everyone expected them to be good. So for them to be, whereas with the Vikings, I think everyone thought they were a very good situation, one of the best situations for one of the rookie quarterbacks to be drafted in. But I don't necessarily think people thought they would be 14 wins good on the
Yeah.
season. So, certainly what Kevin O'Connell has done is impressive. And at times, remember, he was flirting on our hot butts list last year. So, it is impressive what he's done there. And then Dan Quinn, what he's been able to do too with the Commanders. He was a guy that we've seen before on our hot butts list. Of course, he was with a different team at that point in time, but definitely what he and the Commanders have done in Jaden Daniels' first season has been impressive. And then Jim Harbaugh too, especially with all of the players they let go. The decisions they made, keeping Justin Herbert, letting Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams go, drafting Ladd McConkey, getting him in there. They moved up in the draft. The craziest thing about that beatdown they laid on the Patriots was the fact that the Patriots could have had Ladd McConkey. They traded that pick to the Chargers. They drafted him there, and then they took Jalen Polk with the pick they got from the Chargers. And that's just horrible ROI when you compare that the outcome of those two trades, at least here in year one. So definitely, I mean, it's impressive what Jim Harbaugh is doing. And I think one guy that's not on here that you could arguably talk about as well is Sean Payton with the Broncos too. They're doing a pretty good job.
Quarterback.
So I mean, there are plenty of coaches to choose from here, I think, in this award. So while certainly, again, I think if you look at the last 3 years and the turnaround, especially knowing the history of the franchise and how bad things have been for Detroit, I definitely think Dan Campbell has a very compelling argument. But if you just look at it for just the season and the fact that, they're bringing back their offensive coordinator, their defensive coordinator, most of our star players. And yeah, we did have a lot of injuries and he did keep it going. But
we are league leading in injuries, I will say. 19 on the injured reserve right now.
Absolutely. I don't know, to your point, if it is enough for him to come home with the hardware at the end of the year for coach of the year. But certainly has made a pretty compelling case, especially if they do beat the Vikings next week.
I think if they beat the Vikings, I mean, you almost have to eliminate Kevin O'Connell from that situation.
Hopefully. I'd love to quit hearing about him. But unfortunately,
he's good. He's
good. Yeah, absolutely.
I bet of if we were to put these guys against each other physically, I think Dan Campbell and Kevin O'Connell could definitely take the field.
Kevin O'Connell might just try to keep away and tire him out over time. He might go with that. If I can just wear him down, that might be his key to victory.
Though Andy Reid might come, you never know. You see those walruses out in the wild, man. They'll smash people. They'll go until they're exhausted. So we just don't know.
I mean, they have 15 wins on the season already, Jeffrey. You can't count out the walrus there. He is doing a hell of a job with his as he goes for his three-peat here for the Super Bowl. So and then, Jeffrey, if we take a look at another close race, the MVP race. Now, I do have Sam Darnold and Jared Goff on here. They're probably dark horses. Also, I haven't heard too much talk about it, but Jamar Chase, I mean, he is or Jamar Chase, he is uh right now I think he's still leading the Triple Crown after this past week, although I do know T Higgins had quite the day for the Bengals, but I mean, he is of course been impressive for the Bengals, but Joe Burrow kind of willing that team on to victory. Of course, we have Saquon, who is just 100, I think, was it 110 yards or something like that away from breaking Eric Dickerson's record for the most rush yards in the season. Josh Allen, of course, we got to see firsthand what type of season he's been having. And then Lamar Jackson has also been fantastic as well. So when it comes to this MVP race, Jeffrey, there are quite a few candidates to choose from here. Who do you think ultimately gets the nod in the MVP race?
I honestly think it's going to kind of see how it ends. I think with Saquon breaking a record that historic should be kind of, put him into this conversation here, especially as a non-quarterback. Right. I think Jamar Chase, I think if they were going to look at the Bengals situation at all, I think they would definitely give Joe Burrow the nod over Jamar Chase, even though winning the Triple Crown is no small feat here. But what Joe Burrow is doing, and we all thought they were just kind of, dead to rights out of this and, they, put a fork in them, but they are vying for a playoff spot while he's having a historic year. So I think if they make it into the playoffs, I think you have a pretty good, I think Joe Burrow has a pretty good case for being considered that, despite the team not having as lofty the records as the other guys.
Absolutely. And I think similar to, we have Detroit Fan Man here. Welcome to the show. Commenting in that Dan Campbell is not eligible to get the award because the team is too good. And sort of they're too dominant. I think if you take a look here at the MVP award, it's interesting because I know one of the knocks that I've certainly heard about Joe Burrow is how could a quarterback of an 8-loss team possibly win this award? But he has been lights out for them. And if they do somehow make it to the playoffs, a lot of that is going to be on the back of, his play this season. So it's going to be interesting because Lamar Jackson has been fantastic as well. I mean, Josh Allen, obviously we know the MVP award has a bias for QBs. But if the Eagles do let Saquon go and he does break that record, and of course the cherry on top of that would be, of course, he sets that record against the Giants.
Yeah.
If that does happen, I mean, it's
almost like an anti-recency bias. Do you give it to somebody? I don't know. All of these guys have very good cases. It's a very tight race this year.
And I mean, for the most part, I think Lamar Jackson does a lot to carry the Ravens. Saquon, of course, I think the Eagles as a team are probably a little bit more solid than the Ravens, both on defense and offense. Like the talent around Saquon's pretty solid. Josh Allen, I would say, is a little bit closer when it comes to Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. And then, of course, Joe Burrow is in that passing attack is carrying the rest of the Bengals organizations. We're talking about the running game, the kicking game, and the defense. So, like, if you're just saying which, if it's based off of who is elevating a team the most and giving them the MVP for that, he's got the numbers, and he is the only thing that's really redeemable about the Bengals. So, I mean, if you're just going that route, I mean, it's kind of hard to say not Joe Burrow, but certainly an exceptional play out of all the guys on this list here so far we've seen.
Yeah, I think, if I guess it really comes down to how the voters are going to, really define most valuable player, kind of like what they do every year, but if we take one of these guys off the team, will their team do well? And I think, like you'd mentioned, if Joe Burrow was not there, this team would have like one win or something like that. If but I feel like if Saquon wasn't there, this, like you said, this team, the Eagles are fairly solid. I think the Bills might drop off without Josh Allen. I think Lamar Jackson, the Ravens would drop off. I think with Jared Goff, if I think we could do this with a different quarterback. I'm not. That's not crapping on Jared Goff or anything, but we just have such a complete team around him. So, one that wasn't on the list.
Yeah,
Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes vote here, carrying the offense, and I mean that's fair. Although he hasn't had this type of flashy numbers, but he has been a big part of their success there this season for the Chiefs. Definitely so. If we take a look now, Jeffrey, and of course there was no defensive players on that list. So if we take a look at some of the leading candidates here for defensive player of the year, right now the leader in the clubhouse when it comes to the odds for the defensive player of the year is TJ Watt, who has already won the award previously in his career, Jeffrey. But he is your current odds leader. Who do you like in terms of defensive player of the year here? Patrick Surtain certainly has been also making a case for himself as well. But who do you like on the defensive side of the ball?
Of this group, I do like TJ Watt. I think he can just single-handedly control games or end games or give your team the ball back or whatnot. He's just so impactful, and it's very apparent when he's on versus when he's not on when you're watching the Steelers.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do see a Lions kind of break into there, although be it what is that, plus 10,000 in the odds there to do it. But Brian Branch is showing up on the odds book, Jeffrey. So don't count him out there. It's a long shot, but it's still a shot.
Yeah, I think what really hurts him is just he's been injured in some parts of the year, so he's not had a chance to really kind of accumulate any more of those stats. I think if he was playing every week in, week out the way he is, I think he would be definitely pictured up here and definitely be at better odds.
Yeah, and certainly if Hutchinson hadn't gotten injured at the pace he was at, would have seen him up here. But a little bit worrisome, Jeffrey, if I expand it to the top 20 odds makers for defensive player of the year, there are 3 Minnesota Vikings players inside the top 20 for odds. So that Vikings defense has been a problem. And thankfully they let Danielle Hunter walk. Otherwise it would have been 4 players on that Vikings defense.
Big matchup.
And then if we switch over to the rookie players, Jeffrey, of course, we've looked at the established players. You can see I've made them bigger because they're quarterbacks, and as usual, these national, the end of the year hardware tends to be dominated by the quarterback position. But some other names on here. We got Brian Thomas, Brock Bowers, who now has the tight end record there. Malik Neighbors, who has been looking rather good there for the Giants, despite everything going on there. And Bucky Irving, who has been, I think, probably the best rookie running back this season by far for Tampa Bay. And then, of course, you have in the odds beyond them, you also have like Caleb Williams and Drake May, Marvin Harrison Jr., Xavier Worthy. But those guys are definitely well below these guys. I think your top 3 are actually Jaden Daniels, Brock Bowers, and then Bo Nix.
Yeah, I think numbers-wise, that would make sense to me. I think Bo Nix deserves to be up in that top 3 just with the way he has positioned the team overall. But I have to give the edge to Jaden Daniels just with the complexity of the position going in there and doing it your first year. Now I will say Bowers, that breaking a historic record to me is a big thing, but I don't think that will be enough to get over the quarterback bias. So I'm taking Jaden Daniels.
Yeah. Do you think sometimes that when they do break like a historic record that people are like, well, that's going to be enough recognition for itself. Like that's going to be something that stands the time until someone breaks it. is something
Yeah.
that's going to sort of stand the test of time for a while. So then they try to reward other people who had great individual performances with the off season awards, because they might not be all time great seasons, but they try to favor them because, hey, they had a pretty impressive season. And
Yeah. Yeah, definitely there's some biases in there, whether they're for or against some of these positions.
most certainly. And then, Jeffrey, our last one here, just taking a look at the defensive rookie of the year candidates. And there are two two Eagles secondary players here showing up: Cooper DeJean and Quinion Mitchell. Both of those corners showing up here in the top of the odds. And then Jared Verse, the last couple of weeks, has been tearing things up here for the Rams. He's been a little bit of a menace there, as the Rams have been slowly climbing their way back into playoff contention. Um, but what are your thoughts here, Jeffrey? Who do you think? Do you think it's going to be one of the edge rushers that pulls it in, or do you think it'll be one of the defensive backs
I think it's
that brings home the award?
I really like Cooper DeJean in this situation. I mean, just starting even from the beginning of the year, he has played to like such a high level. They're having him do very complicated and very like veteran type of stuff out there, and he's performing it so well. Hey, I kind of got to give to him just based on the fact that he's been doing this pretty much from week 3 onwards.
Yeah, they've both been sort of put in there, him and Quinton Mitchell, and have sort of been asked to step up the whole season, and that defense has been pretty good there for the Eagles. So they have certainly not shied away at all. It definitely seems like, and Terry and Arnold does show up in the odds as well. Here he is plus 6,000 when it comes to the odds, but he's showing up there. He's showing up in the conversation. So, it does seem like outside of Jared Verse and Chop Robinson, and I think about Braden Fisk too. I think those are three pass rushers who may be able to pull away with the award. But it does seem like it's heavily favoring secondaries secondary players this season. So if I had to guess, I think one of the secondary guys will probably pull it down. Right now, the leader in the clubhouse from the secondary is Quinion Mitchell. So we'll have to see if he gets it, or if his running mate there, Cooper DeJean, pulls it in like you thought. And then, Jeffrey, we can sort of talk about this hot take from my father here. Bowers, no, Ditka did it in 14 games. Come on, gentlemen. What are your thoughts there, Jeffrey? I know as we talk about a lot of these awards or records being broken now, obviously they're playing more games than they have at any point in the season. So in your mind, does that take away when those records are broken, when they actually have more games to do it than when the records were originally set?
It's difficult. It's like comparing different eras of the like NBA, for example, like because the game is so different even then now, and that's the same in football. So I think there's always going to be like when there's a switch, especially adding in a game, and they're going to probably add in more. I mean,
Yeah,
spoiler alert, the money is flowing, so the NFL will follow it. So I think it's going to get even more. Kind of the situation you're talking about with like, does this diminish it? Because like Ditka did in 14, it's taken some guy 18 to 20 games now, maybe possibly to do it. Does it kind of take it away from that? And like, I think almost you have to treat some of these historic records as like, almost like separate entities. But I think though getting to the mark though is a milestone for sure.
Absolutely. I think, when it gets to the point where you're just seeing like everybody in the top 10 be replaced by guys just because of there being more seasons, I think certainly at that point it kind of diminishes it, because at that point it's like, okay, well, it's just they have more games, so they're getting more production. But for some of these awards, like the rushing record for the season, Ditka's record, like there are multiple players who've had a chance to break that award or get onto that list, and it's still taking sort of exceptional efforts from these younger players to get on to those lists and even pass them.
Mhm.
So I think, it it certainly isn't less impressive that it took you more games to do it than Mike Ditka did it. I don't know if I don't think it's like a limited resource, right? It's very impressive what Mike Ditka did, being able to do that in 14 games, but I don't necessarily think that takes away from what Brock Bowers is doing either. And to your point, it's kind of hard to compare them exactly one to one because of them being different eras, and so it's not exactly apples to apples. It's like right now letting saying that the Vikings are the number one seed in the NFC, and we just haven't played our game yet. It's like, yeah, okay, it's technically true, but like it's gonna change here shortly. So
Yeah,
uh,
I did bring that up when we were looking at the logos here at the beginning of the show with you having the Lions up there, and it's like, ooh, is that real? Technically, yeah.
yeah, I mean, technically, it is. It is true. Like it technically took them more games to break the record, but it doesn't make it not impressive what they're doing. So, yeah, what Eric Dickerson did, it's going to be, when people talk about it and people talk about the single season rushing record, it will always be in the discussion. And yeah, Barkley may be above him when everything's said and done, but I don't think it doesn't diminish what Dickerson did or what Barkley has done. Yeah, it took more games, but it's not like someone's breaking it every season and it just continues to continue to like roll out of, like an avalanche. Like it just keeps getting set further and further every
Mhm.
season.
Yeah, I think it also depends ultimately how many games they end up adding to the schedule. Do you make like almost like a new leaderboard, like like here is the modern era of the NFL with 18 plus games kind of thing?
That's where we need your theory for that
The
the
book of
the book
stats,
the book of
the
stats.
big book of stats on every single thing you could possibly imagine. It'd be so cool to go through that.
And it just makes for spicier trivia questions, right? Like who had the rushing record when it was only 14 games they were playing?
Yeah, so we're keeping our trivia nights going with by
Yeah.
by allowing this to happen.
We're just opening up more options for those dedicated people who like to entertain everyone who likes a good trivia session.
Yeah,
So,
and Jeopardy, we got to keep Jeopardy going.
yeah, don't want it to be too easy on people.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of too easy on people, Jeffrey, so far this season, when it comes to pick 'em, we have been sticking pretty close with the Lions. It has worked out fantastic for me. I'm 13-2. You've tried to get cute throughout the season. It's got you at 11-4. But it's that time of the show, Jeffrey, where it's time to lock in your selection here. Who do you got tonight on Monday Night Football, the last Monday Night Football of the season?
I can't believe it.
Uh,
We're about to go into the long dark of no football. It's gonna be sad, man.
well, thankfully, and we'll have to see how things go in Week 18, but thankfully, we're going to have Lions football at least into 2025.
Yes.
So thankfully, we don't have to say goodbye just yet. But when it comes to the last game played here, Jeffrey, in 2024, who you picking? You going with San Francisco or are you going with the Lions?
Nope, I'm going with the Lions. I tried to get too cute for bet hedging purposes and I got burned. I'm going with my home team. I'm wearing the jersey. I'm with them. I think they're going to take care of business. I think it's going to be still a fairly close game, but I think they're going to take care of business, get that extra win, feel extra good, and really just kind of work out some kinks and get ready for this matchup coming up next week.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm there with you. Again, I think these teams are on two different paths. The 49ers are heading into an off season of one that's going to be very interesting for them. I think Kyle Shanahan is a fantastic coach, but this Brock Purdy thing is Brock Purdy is coming to a head. Do we sign him? Do we extend him? What are they going to do there? And then I think with everything that happened with their skill positions this year on the offensive side of the ball, between Debo and McCaffrey and Ayuk. I think something's got to give there. And, George Kittle has been very impressive for them. He's been fighting off injury throughout the season, but he's definitely looks like he's, through all the wear and tear, he isn't making it through a full 17 game season anymore. of course, it's 18 with the bye, but it's going to be interesting to see how San Francisco can retool here in the offseason and what they sort of look like. But that's the most interesting thing about them is what happens, next season. Whereas the Lions, the most interesting thing is how far are we going to go?
Mhm.
So I like the Lions again. I think Dan Campbell has this game circled. They want the revenge. It's being played at the place where their season ended last year. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some sort of trickery with either like a Dan Skipper going out there and catching a touch, some sort of something just to let them know that we did not forget what happened last season, and we do not forgive.
Yeah, every week Ben Johnson pulls out something that's just wild to behold. So I'm excited.
They like to in these instances. Not only do they like to beat those people that wrong them, but they like to let them know we're better than you.
Yeah.
And so I am excited to see what that moment will be. What that moment will be here on Monday Night Football.
Yes, it's like a Teddy Bruschi.
Oh, and a little bit of hating here. How far are they going to go being the 5th seed?
Ooh. I guess it depends on who we play.
I mean, that would suck. That would mean that we have to play Tampa Bay. And of all the teams I'd want to not play, Tampa Bay is kind of up there. But, we'll still beat them. We beat them last time. Beat them again.
Yeah.
We'll do whatever we have to do.
Making some early predictions.
Well, that's good. If he gets these predictions out here, going with Sam Darnold will lead Minnesota over them next week, that's good because his predictions do not tend to come.
No, they're mostly wrong anyway. So yeah, keep it coming.
Yep. keep them going. And then Heather Wayne switching. We've switched over from Facebook now to the YouTube. I see.
Oh. Nice.
And well, speaking of YouTube, Jeffrey, I'll do a quick check here to see where
we're almost close to our goal.
Yep. So we have a goal of reaching 100 subscribers, and we're currently sitting at 73. So we need 27 we're looking at to get to our 100 mark. So if you do enjoy the show and want to help the channel grow, the best way you can do that is by subscribing over on YouTube. We are youtube.com/@thelionsgrid. You can find us there. And yeah, we definitely appreciate all the support. Of course, in addition to YouTube, you can also find us on Facebook, Twitch, Instagram, and TikTok and Spotify. Of course, TikTok only for as long as that is around, but certainly we are on there as for the time being. He's also predicting Baker Mayfield for the win, and Jeffrey, he's concerned. He says you look tired.
I am tired. I could not sleep well last night, and I didn't get a chance to take a nap today. But it's going to be another late night because I'll be staying up and watching the Lions.
The no nap, certainly a killer.
That's just my face. Dad, it's just my face. I'm just ugly.
I'm just puffy. Just how I am. just how I am. All right. Well, we want to thank everybody for tuning in and all the participation we had in chat today. Definitely appreciate all of your support. And we'll be back in 2025. Hopefully, Jeffrey, talking about a Lions victory and looking forward to that Week 18 showdown with the Vikings with, as you said, all the marbles on the line.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a happy New Year, everybody. Hope you have a meaningful time with friends and family. I'll see you next year.
All right, everyone. Go Lions, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.